We spent 53 minutes covering a 7-minute cartoon. That's not an accident.
So this is a review for Deduce, you say, and with me today, I guess if I'm Doorlock Homes, I've got my Watkins with me. He's my good friend S.E. MacPeter. Say hi.
Hello, governors. I'm sure jolly glad to be here.
You can be an honorary England citizen or whatever.
I'm from Irish descent, so that might be an insult.
Might be. But just a few bits of info to get underway. So as mentioned, this is a review for Deduce, you say, released on the 29th of September 1956. It's the 781st of the series and it's directed by Chuck Jones. You can find this beautiful restoration, well, kinda. It was released first on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 1 that used a pre-existing master at the time. Still looked pretty good for what it was then, but they did a brand new restoration for the Looney Tunes Platinum Collection Volume 2 DVD and Blu-ray set, which is what you're seeing in this review. You will not see this on YouTube unless Warner Brothers themselves put it up themselves because it's copyrighted, they own it. My video will just get blocked if I try and play the full thing.
If you're looking to see it for free, if you're in America, check out Tubi. It's on there. It is season 4, episode 16, and it's the second cartoon.
But that's the thing with streaming. On some platforms, it's there 1 minute, gone the next. So physical media is the best way of doing it, but at the time of this recording, it's also on there if you happen to be an American. But in case you haven't seen this one, it's a Sherlock Holmes parody, and I'm just keeping this brief because we will cover this cartoon in depth, but it's a Sherlock Holmes parody, where in this case it's not Sherlock Holmes, it is...
Doorlock Homes.
Yes, I love the pun there. Yeah, whatever. And his trusty sidekick, Watkins, and they end up getting into the case of the Shropshire Slasher, and I hate saying that name, so maybe I'll just call him the Slasher because I can't really say it. Great name, though. Great name. But we got a lot of trivia to cover in this one, so strap yourself in, and hopefully I've covered everything. If I miss anything, as always, that's what the comment section is for. So let's start off with the title, because some of you might have deduced this bit of trivia. See what I did there? But the title is a play on the phrase, the deuce, you say, which is an old-timey way of saying, you know, what the devil you say? That kind of thing. And instead of saying deuce, it's deduce, which is what Sherlock Holmes would say in the books when he tries to deduce something. I deduce that this has happened, I deduce that that has happened, and so on. So that's all that. So, with me so far, or did the pun scare you away?
If you aren't too familiar with the references, as we'll cover them, you should be fine. I've not terribly read through the Sherlock Holmes books, but I would have to say from this cartoon, it's a great introduction to them for young kids. It's a great introduction to anyone, really. They did their homework very much, Maltese and Jones.
Both this and Disney's Great Mouse Detective are both great ways to get to know the lore of Sherlock Holmes, and then you can get into the other stuff. And there's plenty of great movies, and of course, the original books themselves, some of which may not have aged as well, but the great thing about them as well is that they're in the public domain, those books, so yeah. Get to reading. There's a lot of references all throughout. I'm going to cover a few of them now, and then there'll be a few I'll cover as we go through the short itself. But there's the Henry VIII Fifth Pub. That's a double pun right there. So most people might look at that and think, oh yeah, it's the play on Henry VIII and his fifth wife, who lost her head, basically. And her name was Catherine Howard, by the way, just in case you were wondering. Sure, you can see that, but you can also see it as Henry's fifth. It's like a fifth of hard liquor. So that term is an old-time term for just your standard 750ml bottle of spirit. So those standard bottle sizes, that's what is referred to as a fifth of liquor. So there's that. I don't know if that's like a fifth of a barrel. I'm not sure what the terminology, where all that comes from. So if you have any idea, definitely let me know. But I will say this. I think if we watch one of the shorts from the Paddy Freeling era, we will need a fifth of liquor, won't we? Because which short uses the animation from this short as a part of its cheetah?
The Miserable Mucho Locos, starring Daffy Duck and Speedy Gonzales. Really, Speedy and Gonzales and a kid who uses his imagination to envision earlier cartoons with Speedy and Daffy. It is not cut-in footage, but it is rather redrawn in this case because they did not have the money to strike the prints into the negative.
Yeah, that's how bad things had gotten, and I'm really dreading covering that one. Insert McKimson's sheesh right here, even though, yeah. And McKimson directed that one too, which is a shame, and I'm sure he was not happy making that one, but I guess a job's a job, so there's that.
Yeah.
But let's go back to an actual good cartoon, which is this one. I just wanted to point out that, yes, they do reuse footage into that one, but you got references like the Cold Cream Guards.
Ferrari poisoning of one of Her Majesty's Cold Cream Guards.
That's a parody of the Coldstream Guards. That's an old British Army regiment. The Slasher himself, I'll say it again, the Shropshire Slasher. I hate saying that. It feels like a Dr. Seuss thing. Like Fox in Socks, it feels like something he would have written for that. But anyway, it's likely a pun on Jack the Ripper or something similar. And there was no Shropshire Slasher in the Sherlock Holmes books, I can tell you that. There was a criminal around this time, the Yorkshire Ripper, so maybe they were parodying that. Shropshire itself is a county in Western England, so it is a place that exists, but I guess Maltese just like the sound of the name. And it's a good name, even though it's annoying to say. And once we actually get into the pub, you'll see two references. You'll see Burton's Bock beer, and that's likely a reference to the production manager, John Burton. That's pretty straightforward. You've also got Seltzer water, which is a reference to Eddie Seltzer, but it's also perhaps a reference to Seltzer water, which is just carbonated water.
A totally meaningless thing outside of the studio since Seltzer got no credits, along with John Burton, but it adds so much atmosphere to the cartoons whenever they insert the names of the staff members in these cartoons.
I guess it's just a bit of fun.
Usually we see it more in the Freeling cartoons than the Jones or McKimson.
We do see Seltzer a few times, like in Roadrunners and stuff, but yeah, it's not done as often. And again, you can watch this short and not know any of the references. It's still part of the background. It doesn't stick out. Sometimes you'll watch a movie, they'll do like an Easter egg, but it just sticks out so much, you think, well, why bother? In this case, it works either way. But this short, there is a reason why you picked this one, and I love this one. I think it's one of Jones's finest shorts, period. It's not just one of his finest Porky and Daffy team-ups, and I think it also helps that, A, you've got Michael Maltese is back. He did a few Roadrunners just before this, after the shutdown, but this is, I think, his first true short that's come out that's not a Roadrunner short. And Maurice Noble, he's back. Hooray!
Yeah, Maurice Noble came back around this time, and yes, there is a reason why I picked this cartoon. This is my favorite Chuck Jones cartoon.
If you're going to pick any, this is definitely a good one. Did you see this on TV or just on the actual DVDs?
I definitely saw this on the DVDs first, but it just blew my mind when I saw it. Just the whole atmosphere. I never even really got that much into Sherlock Holmes, but I just loved the atmosphere. I always loved the characterization. I always loved Porky as Watson. I think the use of Porky in this one is very good. I just loved how ridiculous Daffy got in this.
Speaking of ridiculousness, look, I always loved these Porky Daffy team-ups because the way to do it is have Porky the straight man, the person that takes things seriously. And if you think of them as actors playing other roles, when they were cowboys and that kind of thing, Porky would always take his role seriously. In fact, here, he even has the British accent, whereas Daffy, he just sounds like Daffy. But there's no effort made on his part to actually sound British. And I thought that was a wonderful touch. It just showcases his ego. It's fantastic.
And other thing I love is that in this cartoon, Porky has a wider range of emotion than usual. He seems discontent for Doorlock Homes in this one. You can see it in little small pieces around the cartoon.
Exactly. And the way he's drawn as well, and I was looking into this, one actor that played Watson was Nigel Bruce. And if you look at his expressions, you can see that they use that a lot here. And I think they must have used his faces as the actual basis for the way they drew Porky in this one. And again, you don't have to know that. It's animated well regardless, but it's definitely a nice touch.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, they probably did. He had been in movies. I think he was also doing Watson in radio, but if you want to see him outside of the Watson role, you can see him in Alfred Hitchcock's Rebecca and Suspicion and Charlie Chaplin's Limelight.
So he was definitely prolific. I dare say that would be his best known work, because obviously Sherlock Holmes and Watson, that's a big deal. A lot of people know that. I don't know about the current generation if they really know much about it.
I saw the miserable Holmes and Watson in theater one time with my family, and we just all admitted it sucked.
Oh, that one that was really poorly directed. That one has so many production mistakes, like the actual director of it, apparently he was so inept at directing that they tried to fix up as best they could. Like, it was terrible. And yet this guy keeps getting work. Go figure. So he's still making films. He must have the same agent as Daffy Duck, getting all this work in films, and he's a horrible actor. But that's what makes it so funny. He's such a bad actor in these, and yet, yeah, he thinks he's obviously great. Me, I first saw this one on disc when it came out in the Golden Collection. I never really saw this on TV for whatever reason. And again, I think just whatever was shown here was just certain cartoons over and over, and that was pretty much it. So when I discovered this one, imagine my surprise at just how stylized it is, how beautiful it looks, and how funny it is. And it just showcases Maltese's brilliant writing. It's one of those what I call a perfect cartoon. It really is.
Yeah, this was the period where Ronald Searle's way of drawing was really beginning to impact Chuck Jones's art direction, and this is before it would erase all the other things that made Jones's own art direction great. But Ronald Searle, he was a British boy, and during World War II, he abandoned his art studies and he enlisted in the Royal Engineers. He ended up in Malaysia and Singapore, and when Singapore fell to the Japanese, he was a war prisoner. He managed to actually survive, and with it was about 300 drawings he did during the war, which serve as an incredible capture of what that horrible experience was like, being under capture of the Japanese as a war prisoner. He would become a very popular cartoonist during the 50s, and he inspired so many people. You can really tell his style. There's other people like Ralph Steadman, among others. They have this very nice sort of scratchy line, a higher use of ink and boldness. It's really that sort of style that would begin to cement the later Jones period. We're beginning to see it captured in here because I think you can see more of the way that Jones would draw the eyes now, reeking into Porky and Daffy.
Another interesting thing about that is, obviously Jones is getting this influence, but it's interesting to see you got two characters that were, well, pretty much from the 1930s. Obviously, they were redesigned over the years, but it's interesting to have the older style of characters amongst other really heavily stylized 1950s characters, like you see at the actual bar, and of course, the postman at the beginning, and so on. The different contrasts, and yet it still works.
Yeah, the styling here is really, really evident. The big, bold colors, the shaky line work for the background, the hard color. Sometimes it goes in and out of the lines that are in the background, but this is a gorgeous, gorgeous cartoon. And one thing I also kind of noticed during the title sequence, which is over a pan, I noticed that some little spots you can actually see in the title cell, like on the little clovers in the Deduce, you can just take little spots of white that weren't perfectly painted. It's so clear. I noticed those little things.
So I reckon we take a look at this short from start to finish and just go through what makes this one so great. And people would have been already seeing footage as we were talking as well, but I think we go through it. And I like the artistic license in the beginning where you've got two landmarks right next to each other. They're not next to each other in real life, right? But whatever, it just tells you where you're supposed to be. And even the colors of this one, it's purple, and fog isn't purple, but it evokes the fog. You know that you're in London, you're in somewhere, I guess, really dirty. It's fantastic.
And we can tell from the police officer during the beginning that this is a cartoon about law and crime. We can deduce from that image alone.
Exactly.
But him spinning his bat, that always sets the mood perfectly, I think.
And just the layout and how the beginning is done. We start with the skyline telling us straight away, we're in London. The purple tells us it's old-timey London because you've got the smog that's all around. We see, yes, it's the law and order as we pan down. It transitions from a black background over to a horse and carriage, again, just reminding us this is old-timey London, not modern-day London. And we pan past and we see the address of where our heroes actually live. So it's just great opening.
Yeah, we get the horse carriage in silhouette, which also tells us it's night if it wasn't obvious already. And I'm just looking at this horse, which is so well observed, but it's drawn like Searle. It's worthy of Searle, I'd say, especially what overly lanky legs it has.
And even the backgrounds, we just see details what we need to see. So in the very back of this cityscape, it's just a solid shape and nothing else. But we don't need anything else.
The budgets have been kicked on quite a notch, but I think Jones was just breaking budget on most of these cartoons around this point. They really seem more ambitious compared to the Freelings and McKimsons, and this is the period for both Freeling and Jones where the layout is the outstanding factor, but this is still the period where Jones is still going hit after hit, at least for another year before he, I guess, would begin to fall into place like Freeling. But he really, really brought everything to this cartoon. They thought of everything here.
And the pan even continues as we fade into the actual house itself. And we see stuff in the background which would be nods to his past adventures as well. And just Holmes's knowledge of very scientific techniques. That was something in the books as well. And there's even a very brief thing, it kind of looks like a Donald Duck in the back, which I know it's not a parody of that, but it just looks so funny. There's one little duck in the background as well. But the way it's done, though, is that you're focused on what you need to focus. But for those of us freeze-framing this, you can notice these other little funny details.
Your eye is just perfectly placed with these big blocks of color of just what you need to see. When we get into Sherlock Holmes's place, we have the very strong sort of turquoise bluish background, and then all of his furniture exterior that branches out is in several colors like red, yellow, green, purple. It's beautiful. And then Doorlock Holmes himself is in that robe that is sort of like a pinkish purple, and the fez hat, which perfectly draws him out of his blue background, and the greens as well. It's just so lovely art directed. Maurice Noble's color design is just on top of everything of this. This really is Searle worthy, I must say.
And looking at the background, just where we see Doorlock Holmes' back, there's even a little picture on the left of this prisoner, which I thought was kind of amusing. It's just, again, you weren't meant to really pay too much attention to that. And again, wonderful production design, which allows that to happen. But I'm just looking at it now going, I wonder who that is.
Probably someone he apprehended, or maybe it was an older photo of him when he was in prison. I don't know.
Who knows?
But I'll never notice this, the papers on his floor, because again, he's deducing, which is a great way to open up. It ties into the title, and it's great wordplay again on Sherlock Holmes.
Let's see now. I can deduct £6 8 for magnifying glasses and gumshoes, 2 guineas 6 pence for entertaining footpads, pickpockets, and sneak thieves. And then there's cab fares to and from murders.
For those who don't live in the UK, I don't, but there used to be ridiculous and strict taxing of English citizens. So this is a very British-style sense of humor, which also fits into Ronald Searle's art direction because he was British.
Also, you'll notice how unkempt his office actually is. That was also a character trait of Sherlock Holmes as well. A very unkempt system, filing papers and such. They've done their homework. They really have.
I never noticed this till like my 100th year when my eyes started looking for other things, but the beastly old income tax.
Yeah, it definitely was beastly at the time, as you've already mentioned. Again, the wordplay is fantastic. I love Porky's narration. He's setting up the scene, and he's setting up the fact that Holmes is doing deductions, and it's a different kind of deducting, and he'll write things off like taxi fares to and from murders, all sorts of stuff. Again, Maltese is on fire with his writing here.
He notes to Watkins that there will be a knock at the door which signals the start of their story for this.
Watkins, in a moment there will come a knock at the door, heralding the start of the mystery of the Shropshire Slasher. Answer it. My pants are caught in a nail.
Well, he was right.
Because that was something that happened in the books too. When he sees a visitor, he will just deduce exactly what the problem is. So they're playing up on it. But I've seen this cartoon so many times. But what always gets me each and every time, even though I know it's coming, is, of course, answer the door, my pants are caught on a nail. That kills me.
I love it. It also is a great instruction to show us Porky. Porky answers the door. She falls down in a nightstand. Some of the layouts in this, you're going to lose a lot of the wow factor because I don't think anyone is going to watch this review on a theater screen. If you are, let us know how you were able to do that. I think that's crazy, but yeah, he falls down. Doorlock has managed to get his pants out of the nail.
Don't touch that body! A clear case of curare poisoning of one of Her Majesty's cold cream guards. Telegram. You'd best have that step fixed, Governor.
You think it's going to be a murder, and Daffy's like, oh yeah, he's poisoned. It's also a parody of their colouring style as well, because the way this postman is coloured, he's got that really sickly lime, would you say?
Yeah, he has a line that's colored like the cop, which I think was saying that actual people of this time may have suffered due to the poor health conditions in such crowded areas of the city of London and New York and other places.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh no, I just tripped over a step, and it's just the most ridiculous thing ever.
He criticizes Daffy, best have that step fixed, governor.
Just for that, you receive no gratuity.
Simple animation, you got Daffy on that held pose, and the way he just grabs that letter as well. So it was those little details where Jones would only animate what needed to be animated. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and we're very well drawn into this. We have Porky in the background blocking what's behind the postman, and we have the heavy shadow blocking out what's behind Daffy, which great contrast, and it really does add to the nighttime atmosphere.
The next bit as well, just as the narration continues, is just seeing Daffy's eyes and eyebrows. They're the only thing that's animated.
And this is a great way to lead the audience into that. If they hadn't caught on before, this Doorlock Holmes is not the most stable character. So if you've never seen a Porky or Daffy cartoon before, you know what you're in for with this animation, which is always great. It's a Really lovely piece. And of course, we have the narration, which is more confident. And we get sort of Porky's first bit of sarcasm.
I could tell by his tense, eager expression that Holmes was bringing his immense faculties of observation to bear. By George, I've solved it! Have you now, Holmes? That's ripping, you know. Yes, by Jove, I can take my old maiden Aunt Clotilda as a dependent.
I always interpret it as Porky doesn't really care whatever Daffy has to say afterwards.
Yes. And we get the misleading bit here where he's like, I got it. And it's actually about his aunt, about claiming something else as per his deductions and nothing to do with this letter that they've received. But this letter, again, the whole thing regarding the toff, and I'm toffer than you, that's great. Dartmoor Prison is a real prison, by the way. It's actually still is around, but it was a prison from the early 1800s, and that was during the France-Britain War. That held French prisoners originally. So yeah, it's got a long history.
And I noticed, this is again me drawing my eyes ways, that the cameraman wasn't actually cleaning up his setup when he filmed the scene of Porky reading the letter. There's a lot of dust. And I wonder if that was intentional to add to the atmosphere. There is one Jones cartoon that I think intentionally did this, Scaredy Cat. If you watch that cartoon, there is so much dust all over the camera that I think Jones called for that move just because it would add to the nighttime atmosphere. Give that cartoon a watch if you can, because you'll see just how dirty it is, especially in like the last minute or so. It's a really interesting art direction move, and I wonder if this was calling back to that sort of thing.
Whether it is or not, it's still a great effect. And you gotta wonder, this person that delivered the letter, how late is he working? Because usually letters would be done in the morning and that, yet this person seems to be, delivering letters at 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe 2 o'clock or something. So
I guess he got paid well because it must have been urgent. And of course, I have escaped from Dartmoor Prison and I'm going to start slashing innocent citizens again. You fancy yourself quite a toff, but I'll show you I'm tougher than you are. The Shropshire Slasher.
it's great. But of course, they don't wait too much longer because they leave at 3 a.m. And another detail is the sky, because as we know, as someone who literally sometimes starts his job at 3 a.m., yes, I do have that kind of job, sometimes 3 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever, the sky does slightly brighten up at 3 in the morning, especially during the summer months and that. And yeah, it looks a little brighter. So it's like still night, but you can tell it's almost going to be morning. It's a nice little touch.
I've done postal ships where I've seen that. I don't do that anymore, thankfully. And I've also seen that because I sometimes work at 6 a.m. in the morning. So I've seen a little bit of that before the sunrise properly starts. But yeah, this was a great attention to detail. And I love this pose of Daffy walking on the ground like a dog.
And even the colors, now they've gone with the green and the yellows there. Again, because we've got the silhouettes at the beginning, we focus on the silhouettes, and yet the detail doesn't call attention to itself in the back.
Every composition in this cartoon works. This is a really gorgeous cartoon. I love just looking at everything and just trying to deduce the basic shapes of everything, seeing what Maurice Noble was trying to do. He had so many interesting techniques. If you read the book, The Noble Approach, which talks about his art direction, you will learn a lot. I can't recommend that book enough, and I have to recommend it for myself because I'm due to read it again. I don't actually own a copy. I rented it from the library.
And because it's long out of print, which is an absolute shame, it has been made available online that you can read in the PDF, which, look, I'd rather own it in a book form, but hey, better than nothing, right?
A very essential book that really gives him his due, and it really does go into why cartoons don't really have such strong design as they might have. Well, I guess that's up for debate, but I always love this scene of Porky and Daffy walking to Henry V's 8th, which I'll get into in a moment, is based not on a London restaurant, but one in Los Angeles that's based on the experience of them. But I always love the silhouette again of Daffy and Porky walking towards it, where they're a little grayish to reflect the light, and they also have a little bit of the lampshade on their heads.
If you still weren't sure about how inept Daffy was, well, this scene will tell you as he's following clues into a barrel, which is ridiculous.
Sort of the thing that Maltese would write to in his Stupor and Blabber cartoons for the Quick Draw McGraw show, which were detective stories. I like those cartoons a little bit, but they're nowhere near as brilliant as this approach. It seems like the detective approach only went so far, but when it went far, it went really, really far.
The Henry VIII's 5th. I just love the brief scene. It doesn't go for very long, but it sets up the mood that this is a really dingy bar where only the scum and villainy would hang out at this late part of the night. We just see these two strangers, which are not even detailed. It's just shadows and two blobs, essentially. But it works.
Yeah, this entrance. I want to call attention to this particular use of layout. I love the use of shadow work in this cartoon especially. It draws your eyes perfectly to where the characters are centered in frame, and it makes sure that your eyes are always where they need to be.
It works so well. So you've got Daffy, his beak gets stuck, he's clearly called attention to himself, and all of these really dingy looking people looking on. Some even look French, funnily enough. Like, one's even got an ascot around him. They're just great designed characters, just look really ugly.
Yeah, when I talked about Searle worthy, I really did mean these shots of these characters. You wouldn't have seen this too much, so Jones could get a little bolder than usual. Or Maurice Noble could with the designs of these humans. My favorite period for the Jones humans is a little earlier in the 50s because I think they're very well observed and well caricatured before they're heavily stylized. But I really do love this period as well where they're very much Searle-worthy and they're only so briefly on camera that you don't have to think too hard about people seeing that and going, wow, that's really bold. But there really is a great strength, and I want to mention it here before I forget. Devin Baxter told me this, so thank you. But the interior of this restaurant is based off the Tam O'Shanter restaurant, which is sort of a Scotch-British pub style thing that is in Los Angeles, a restaurant. And it's been open since 1923, and you can still go there today if you're interested.
So if you're still looking for the Shropshire Slasher, well, you've got a place to go, right? But these designs as well, if you look at them, a lot of the designs don't even make too much sense, especially the sailor. There's like a little circle which indicates the nostril, yet it looks really strange, but yet it's a wonderful
I think it's supposed
design.
to be a mole.
Well, see, I've always seen it as a nostril. See? Interpretation.
Yeah, you can take a lot of interpretation. Like, this is a cartoon that really deserves your full attention for just how it looks, and that sort of design doesn't usually, wouldn't think it plays well when you look at it that direction because it's very heavily reliant on the nose and profile, but it works when he moves his head. That's sort of the thing that Jones got really well that I don't think Bob McKimson did, or to some extent Holly Pratt, because Pratt did a lot of those heavy designs, but I think they directed those cartoons so you wouldn't have to have the characters move as much, but here they're still fully dimensional, which I love, and we get into Daffy's interrogation of these caricatures.
I may be down, but the jig is up.
In the first one he sees, where he gets the ash from the end of his, well, I don't know if it's a cigarette or a cigar, but whatever, he's smoking there, and puts it in the envelope. But the funny thing about this scene is that Daffy knows how to collect evidence, and yet he doesn't know how to use it. It's just really bizarre. Some have even said that this first character he comes up to was inspired one of the characters in the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. I don't know how far off that is true or not, but I can see it, though.
I don't think Boris Bajanov owes himself to this design, but it's just a similar character. I think they were thinking on their own front there, but Bill Scott, he did work at Warner's and he did like those cartoons, but I don't think they were looking to one incidental character in particular, because you can see this sort of design in a lot of cartoons, but he collects his ash, then he collects the sailor's beer.
And that bit
I
makes me
love
laugh.
that. I love that he frowns and just doesn't even move. He just does the frown. It's so funny. It kills me because you don't even notice it, really.
Exactly. It's so good. It's like, oh, you know, I
He
lost my
looks
beer.
and he just is just sad. And then we get back to Porky where he's collecting clues and he recognizes Daffy's insanity by just giving that smirk when his own pipe is thieved by Daffy.
And I don't even know what on earth Daffy was trying to achieve with all of that, but I guess he's just trying to look important.
I think he's trying to have a good time there.
But this next line, again, wonderful wordplay. Lady Ashtabula, the last time we met in Ascot, was it not? Ascot not.
Lady Ashtabula, the last time we met was at Ascot, was it not? Ascot not? Oh, you're still a fine figure of a woman.
You know, wonderful pun there. I don't know what Lady Ashtabula is referring to. I know there's an Ashtabula in Ohio, but I'm not sure. But you seem to have a suspicion, though.
Ohio is near Michigan, and I don't think either Maltese, Noble, or Jones really spent any time there. But Maltese, before he went to Leon Schlesinger's after he left Fleischer, spent a few months working at the Jam Handy Association, which is in Detroit, Michigan. So he might have been familiar with the area, and he might have been calling back to that time. I don't think that's it, but that was the closest I could come to trying to figure out an answer. But this is the wordplay that was becoming more of Maltese's bread and butter of this period, and I really do love it, especially since it's not subtle, but they don't really call that much attention to it. They don't leave a beat for you to think about it like a lot of modern cartoons would do.
Egad, these look like a woman's fingerprints. Could it be possible that the Shropshire Slasher is a... Oh, Elfie, this
Holmes annoying me.
And I do love her discontent with this whole thing as Daffy does the interrogation. And look at Daffy's beak. It's very cartoony in this. I don't know who's doing this scene offhand, unfortunately, but it is really, really funny work, though.
It's perfect, and he's charming her just to get her fingerprints, but then being the idiot that he thinks the slasher is a woman now just because he's got fingerprints from her. It's just so ridiculous. And if you're wondering who does the voice of the women in here, both this lady Ashtabula, and the mother you see later, that is June Foray, in case you were wondering.
Very brief, but still very funny. And of course, she goes, this man's a pipe. And we get another great little piece of these guys playing darts. It's so brief, but I love it.
Just those designs are so ugly and just perfect. You just see them for a very brief moment, and the more you look at them, the more, I guess, wrong they look in a sense. Like, it's so funny in that way.
The guy in the red shirt, he's sort of French looking, but he also has like a gold or like a completely dusted tooth. I never noticed this about the cartoon that much, but these guys, a lot of them just have terrible teeth, which I think is, I hate to say it, but I think that's supposed to be a joke on British people.
Yeah, it would be. And even this one shot is laid out really well because you got the three different heights of these characters, but it's in line with the lighting, and you got the shadow in the back. It's like there's a spotlight on these three low lives that would hang out in the bar, you know, maybe between shipping assignments or whatever.
No shot is wasted in this. We get Daffy walking to them, and he gets the darts thrown at him. It's the beginning of people fighting against Daffy, more so that the slasher were doing it. But I love the fact that Daffy doesn't even complain as he would in other spots. And
oh, Alfie, is it? Where was you on the night of... Well, he's eliminated him as a suspect.
We cross-dissolve to them at the bar trying to order, and I love that Daffy doesn't even bother to take the darts out of his bill.
Yes, that's one detail that some people may not even notice as much. I mean, it took me a few viewings to really pay attention to that. What I was paying attention to was a few things. I love the voice Mel Blanc does for this bartender, which is that really gravelly voice.
What'll it be now, governors?
And this man has seen things. He's seen a lot of things. He just doesn't care at this point in time. He's regretting his life as a bartender, I think, but he has nowhere else to go because jobs were hard to come by during that time.
It isn't Ted Pierce voicing him, but it sounds like him a little bit. I bet they intentionally based his voice off Ted Pierce, who was a drinker. And once again, I'm drawing my eyes where it's not supposed to be. I love the sort of turquoise of the line of the jugs behind him, and I noticed that Porky's cell that he is on, not what the pipe is, but I don't know how they're hung, but the cells, the registration must have been broken a little bit, because if you look between where his hat ends and where the line work of the lighting is, you could see it wobbles a little bit during the next scene.
Hot buttered gin. In a nut brown October ale, over the rocks.
And the drinks that they order, yes, I did look into this, and they are real drinks, by the way. So you got hot buttered gin. That's kind of like a cocktail mix. So it's like heated gin with various other things. And I'm not really much of a drinker. So those who have had hot buttered gin, definitely let me know in the comments if you've had any and what was it like. But what Porky orders, I thought was interesting, the nut brown October ale over the rocks. And that is also known as the October Nut Brown Ale. That's been a drink for centuries that comes from the Mossflower Woods region. And it's one of those drinks that requires frequent tapping, it requires frequent tasting, and it's like so much attention and care is given to this drink. So my thing with this is that you got Porky is getting a drink that's very refined, very upper class, whereas Daffy's just like, yeah, give me this cocktail mix, and that's it.
And then we get, as I was talking about a little bit before, this great layout. This is really where they show off the great art direction in this cartoon. Again, your eyes are perfectly centered. There's great foreground and background material. And then we get this start and we get Holmes looking into it with his magnifying glass. And this is just great art direction, something that you would need to be in a movie theater to truly appreciate it. And we get more Porky's or Watkins' disinterest in Holmes, like, you never cease to amaze me.
Trifle with me, will ya, you ruddy coaster mongers? A clue! Really, Holmes, you never cease to amaze me.
Just that eye, the impact of that eye would have really been a lot better on a big theater screen at the time. The handle of the knife as well. How did he carve all those little letters on it? I don't know. But
And
he
then
somehow
there's
did
the
it.
permit joke, which is another British staple because I don't know if it's still this way. It might be, but you have to have a permit for so many tedious things just to do things. It's like HOA permit stuff. You have to have that type of approval for so many things in England.
And we finally see our villain. And just the way it's laid out, you can see just how big and menacing he looks. It's fantastic.
They really highlight just how tough he is. They even add the shading onto him. It's almost trying to highlight that he's the villain, about how dark he is. We get the up high position, and this is another drawing that's really seer-worthy of the Shropshire Slasher in the introduction. The great little thing of the bartender just does not care about what's about to happen.
Watch me and learn, Watkins. Amazing fellow.
Yeah, that little gasp he does. He's done. He's like, oh, great. I'm probably going to have some damage to my establishment, or to be establishment.
close up.
Pretty much. He just doesn't care. Jones's timing is so perfect that that little bit is just enough to say the joke. But again, another wonderful bit of layout. As we see Daffy is approaching and we see this top-down shot and we just see how little Daffy looks compared to him. Jones has done this before where there will be this immovable object just on one still. Maybe the eyes are animated, but then you would have Daffy just being so lively. Dribble on Daffy is another example of that.
We have this sort of contrast of Daffy moving all over the place, and the other character does not move at all, the galoot. We saw this in My Little Duckaroo, and critiqued that it took too long to get anywhere, but we've gone everywhere before this, and here Jones has cut it down just enough where it is amusing, and we even get a little bit of cross-cutting otherwise.
We even see Porky just smirking where it's just, yeah, my partner's an idiot.
Yeah, it's like he's falling a little bit into laughter, but he just does not care that much. Or maybe he's a little embarrassed, it looks like, by the expression, and...
Come along now, my man. We have an engagement with Scotland Yard. Whoops. Mustn't keep the bobbies waiting, you know. Let's go. I think it only fair to warn you that I have studied jiu-jitsu.
He tries dragging him along, and eventually the slasher does have enough.
I like how Daffy says he knows, well, not jiu-jitsu, like he completely mangles up that word, trying to show off how strong he is. But I noticed with this short as well, there is definitely a lot of off-screen action. So you got the darts, and you even got the bits where he gets crushed by the slasher. You don't actually see it. It's just off-screen action, which is very effective here.
Yeah, it really gives the extra pop to the action.
You may be big, but I'm small. Really? I fail to see how you hope to withstand my superior skill. Take over.
And it really does set up how menacing the Shropshire Slasher is. How bad is he going to mangle up Daffy?
We got the aftermath, which is his entire neck squished in with Daffy gasping for breath. And I just like the fact that as soon as Porky just walks in and he just resolves it so peacefully, quickly, oh, just give up now. Thanks.
I'm just going through this obsessively. I love how it just gradually turns to him on the Shropshire Slasher's arm. And we get the bends of the muscle just to show how strong he is. And then he pulls up the neck, and it's great score by Milt Franklin as well. We really haven't talked that much about it, but he really captures the dark, grimly feeling that adds so much to the atmosphere in this cartoon. And I never noticed before that the slasher actually takes a smoke before he pulls up his muscle, almost as if he's trying to hide to the audience, watch me do my stuff. And then, as you mentioned, Porky goes into the scene to take over, and Watkins, he can just do his own interrogation so much easily just because he can capture his sympathy so well because he doesn't try to be aggressive. He knows how to handle him.
Your name? Speak up, man.
Shropshire Slasher.
Occupation?
Shropshire Slasher.
We even got the slasher. He goes from this hulking menace to, he looks kind of feeble whenever he talks to Porky. He gets all shriveled down.
He becomes such a big softy, and this is another thing I'll compare to Milo Ducker, where Porky almost does nothing in that cartoon. Here he's used so perfectly as the better half of Daffy and makes Daffy look so much worse by comparison, always proving to be the stable one and always being able to handle anything in this cartoon. Porky wasn't usually played up as the big hero, at least as much. Sometimes he could have a goofier side, like in Drip Along Daffy. He also takes the drink as well. But here he's just used so perfectly and engages so well with what happened. Really brilliant.
It is. And of course, again, the wordplay. Once again, name, Shropshire Slasher. Occupation, Shropshire. See, I can't even say
Shropshire
it.
Slasher.
It's just fantastic. And then Daffy decides he's going to come back into it and deal with him, and he becomes this hulking menace once again. And this is also yet another case of them doing their homework. We see Daffy as like a bare-knuckle fighter, and that's what Holmes was. He was actually an expert in bare-knuckle boxing or fighting, so that's another thing in there. Of course, he's got to have a pipe while he's doing all this.
Yeah, he's sort of like an Irish wrestler.
Yeah.
We almost saw this sort of thing in Mixed Master, but nowhere near like this.
And there's some wonderful animation again. Held pose on the slasher. Daffy's really wild animation, and there's even a frame where Daffy's just all over the place. It's just all smears and legs everywhere and arms everywhere. Done
It's like
so
Daffy
well.
is building up to that. It gets to that, and then we hear the fight off screen, which again brings the suspense of how bad Daffy's going to come out.
You silly! It'd be a bit rough on the slasher, but the foolish cove asked for it. You may resume your interrogation, Watkins.
And in a wonderful touch, Daffy's shorts have been put over his head. And with a nice little bow on top too, so nice little touch there.
I
It's
love the extra humiliation of the bow. It's so funny.
And then all in all, Porky just asks him, "Oh, can you just turn yourself in? There's a good fellow." And that's it. He just says, "Yeah, I'll do that."
I want to do what's right.
In a minute now, look, old boy. How's about returning to prison? There's a good chap.
Yes, sir. I want to do what's right, I do.
But he sends a letter and everything, oh, he's going to kill people and all that, and yet he just gives up so easily. Just why? I love it. It's ridiculous. But who do we see enter into this pub? Via the family entrance, by the way.
I love that Daffy's completely lost at this point. They really highlight it with his eyes. The mask around the sides of his eyes is held to the rest of the cartoon, and he's so fed up that he just goes over the Shropshire Slasher's mother.
That does it. I'm gonna haul you in, hawking dandelions without a license.
And look at the big shoes. It just looks so funny. Some have said that the voice sounds very familiar to the voice that was used in My Fair Lady, but given that the show would have started this year and this would have been animated earlier, that's a coincidence, nothing more, because these things take a while to animate. It does sound similar, the voice that Jim Foray uses, though.
This cartoon would have been in the works probably about 18 months before its release. It was sometime in late 54 or early 55 probably that this cartoon was having all of its elements worked out. They could have had Foray do it in a pickup session, which would have done it, but I don't think it would have been that tall because of the Technicolor.
Yeah.
And Daffy just loses it. And he, again, brings up the British licensing and permit system about the dandelion.
And just the deranged-looking Daffy, where he's just so desperate for a win, and he'll take anything, even to harassing an old lady. You know, I just love that.
Mother!
Mother? Really?
But look at the way Daffy gets shaken up and all the stuff that comes out of his trench coat. He's got dice in there, he's got a doll and a comb and some coins.
I just love every little detail in this cartoon. I also love the mother's striped clothes, and then we actually do learn that it is mother after Holmes accuses her of hawking dandelions without a license. We hear him go, "Mother," and then we hear one of the rare times that wonderful mother of mine is played. An obvious pun, of course, but it was a rarely used one. It's used in maybe about 8 cartoons over 15 years, but I always love hearing the cartoons. I wish they used it more.
With Will Franklin, he uses less cues anyway in these things. He does a few cues that are sort of British and that, like he'll use English Country Garden, like you do hear that briefly. You do hear a little brown jug, but it's so subtle. And in an 18th century drawing room, you do hear that a little bit as well, but it's not what Carl Starling would do, which would be an out and out thing where it's so obvious. It's very muted in the background, just a hint of it.
That might have been intentional for this cartoon, but I also think that was the general direction of the music. I think Milt Franklin just had the downside of having to work after some budgeting was cut, that I guess perhaps for royalty reasons they were cutting down on the use of popular music, which thankfully hasn't hindered these cartoons in their availability. So it seems to have been a non-factor at least, but of course the Shropshire Slasher has become so sympathetic thanks to Porky, and also the introduction to his mother, that he beats Daffy all over again because he insulted his mother, and we don't even see it. We just see him lift Daffy up in the shake of Daffy's body.
We end with a wonderful little gag, which doesn't quite work if you're outside of America, and I'll explain why in a sec, but it's still funny, because I know the reference, okay? So, Porky asks Daffy what school he learned to be a detective. Elementary, my dear Watkins. Elementary. That's a parody of what Holmes would actually say, elementary, my dear Watson. And of course, elementary, to play on the fact that it's elementary school.
Which is the starting school. So your kindergarten will be in an elementary school, for example, just for people outside where you go to primary school.
Yes.
But I always did love the little exchange between the Shropshire Slasher and his mother, and I also love the gray animation of Porky shaking to just show how hard the Slasher is giving it to Daffy. And then he just smokes afterwards. He doesn't care anymore. No one cares about Daffy at this point. And of course he says, I promised the gentleman I'd give myself up. You always were such a good boy.
I promised the nice gentleman I'd give myself up now, Mother.
You always was a good boy, Slasher.
Again, he's sympathetic and he doesn't look like a menace anymore when he's with his mother, So, yeah, there's all that. But we end right there on a very high note on a wonderful joke.
And now my good friend Luke Perkins, who is a frequent collaborator on this channel, he wanted to discuss some more of the color theory behind this short. We've touched upon a lot of that already, but he does go a little bit further. And he loves this short as well, as much as me and SC do. So he sent me a recording and here it is. So take it away, Luke.
It's elementary, middle, and high, my dear Anthony. Now we're on the fourth of 6 Daffy shorts, where Daffy Duck plays a private eye and/or detective. Previously, there were 3. First one was The Great Piggy Bank Robbery in 1946, directed by Bob Clampett, where he played the role of Dick Tracy, or Duck Tracy. Next was The Super Snooper in 1952, directed by Robert McKimson, where he played Duck Trig, but is more of a general parody of private eye films and comics in general. Then in 1956, Chuck Jones paired Daffy Duck and Porky Pig in Rocket Squad, which parodies 2 detective shows that were popular in the 50s, Dragnet and Racket Squad, into one whole short. And it's fine, I guess. Then in the same year, with the same director, we get Deduce, you say, where Daffy Duck and Porky Pig step into the roles of Sherlock Holmes and Mr. Watson. Of course, they're given silly parody names of Doorlock Homes and Mr. Watkins, but it does a pretty good job of capturing the spirit of those classic British mysteries very well, in the style of a Looney Tunes short. Daffy Duck would later play detective in 2 more shorts, both directed by Robert McKimson, Boston Quacky in 1957 and China Jones in 1959, but Anthony will discuss those in due time. Now, while we're on the subject of Sherlock Holmes specifically, there is a pretty good song from a rather obscure musical called Drat the Cat by Milton Schaefer and Ira Levin, where the main character, Alice Van Gilder, in the musical sings about how she and another character could be like Holmes and Watson, referencing Sherlock Holmes and Mr. Watson. And later on in the musical, she ends up being a cat burglar. That show specifically never had an original cast recording, but a few years later, like in the 90s, it actually was able to get a proper cast recording with new vocals. Particularly, the song Holmes and Watson was performed by Susan Egan, who played Meg in Hercules, and she does a pretty fun version of that song. So definitely check that out when you get the chance. But let's get back to the subject of this particular short, shall we? This one in particular has gorgeous art direction, courtesy of Maurice Noble and Philip Degard. What stands out to me is how great the use of color is here, particularly with the shots that take place outside. Those shots only use colors like green, yellow, and a very dull purple if you look carefully. Green is used for mainly the houses, whether they're in darkness or on the light. Yellow is used for the occasional bright window of the houses or even the lampposts around the street. Finally, you have the dull purple, or sometimes the monochrome or gray, that is mainly used for the sky and very distant places like the London Bridge in the opening shot. These colors help simplify the staging and not detract from the characters, but are very stylish in their own right. There's a color theory I heard about recently called the 60%, 30%, and 10% theory, where 3 colors are used with different focuses, and that theory is present very well here and work with the staging. Interestingly, Daffy, or Doorlock, wears a very bright green and yellow for his detective suit, while Porky, or Watkins, wears mostly brown, and they stand out from the backgrounds very well. Then with the interiors like Doorlock's house and the restaurant that appears later in the cartoon, you start to see a bit more variety in the color palette. In Doorlock's house, anything that under the light is mainly blue, but when anything is under the light, you get more color variety like brown and purple, sometimes red, and even some green too. It's a recurring theme with the Chuck Jones shorts that Maurice Noble worked on with how he played with color and focus and staging. Calls for Alarm, in particular, comes to mind. Then you get to the restaurant, and a sign outside the restaurant is pink with red lettering. Inside the restaurant has colors that we're mostly familiar with through the short so far, like yellow, green, and blue, sometimes muted even. But in one spot, the wall is completely red, but it's used in a more unique way in contrast to Doorlock's house, where Doorlock's house is sometimes very tidy and looks like a comfy house. The restaurant just looks like any other seedy pub. One shot I find particularly funny is when Daffy, or Doorlock, is looking for any kind of clue. And he's taking literally anything, like from the ash of a cigarette to even just the beer. And you see this one sailor who was having the beer, and he goes from this neutral expression he was having for the most part to sad immediately, like, oh, blimey, I was just gonna drink that. It's a really nice touch. The character design in particular in this whole restaurant sequence very much feels very reminiscent of the works of British illustrator Ronald Searle, which Chuck was very influenced by in the 50s when cartoons of this period were getting more stylized. To be quite honest, I mainly wanted to talk about the color design of this cartoon. I love this one, and there are some great gags, but I wanted to focus on the color work specifically because I really do think it's interesting. Honestly, I love this cartoon. Might be tied with the Great Piggy Bank Robbery in terms of Looney Tunes shorts where Daffy Duck plays the detective subgenre. But on its own, it's just a really great Sherlock Holmes parody. There's the fantastic color design, the fantastic backgrounds, the fantastic animation, and really great writing from Michael Maltese and vocal performances from Mel Blanc, who does a really great Cockney British accent all throughout. I'm gonna give this one a 10 out of 10. It's one of my personal favorites from the 1956 year, and it's honestly one of my favorite Chuck Jones shorts. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Pip pip shitty-o.
We've shown just how much we love this cartoon, and again, this is my favorite Jones cartoon. I just can't get enough of the art direction. I could go on about every little detail, but I think I'd repeat myself too much, so I tried saving it for just some of the few outstanding shots that I wanted to cover. I'm just sad that we're almost through these kinds of cartoons now.
And this is a masterpiece. It's one of Jones's finest shorts. It is a 10 out of 10 for me because really there's nothing to critique. There's nothing to put down. There's no wasted shot. There's no wasted gag. The wordplay is hilarious. Maltese is back in fine form after his brief absence due to the shutdown. Noble, again, he's back. Wonderful work. So, yeah, I mean, 10 out of 10 for me, and I'm not going to apologize for that either. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is a 10 out of 10 for me just because I love every single thing in this cartoon. It's just everything I look for in a cartoon. Just deep writing, very funny gags, outstanding art direction, and nothing wasted. It's just perfect for me. I love this cartoon so much.
It's an amazing one, and I was so happy that I finally got to the position to do so. But that'll do it for this one, and it's an extra long video, and I'm sure you can see why. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.
That's all, folks.
Always was a good boy, Slasher.
Tell me, Holmes, at what sort of school did you learn to be a detective? Elementary, my dear Watkins. Elementary.